Barsele Sourceman here. It's March the 15th, 2024. This is my second video after coming home from PDAC. I'm gonna be covering, or I'm gonna be doing a video where I cover a bunch of more companies. This actually will be a refresher of sorts of a case, or actually I think this will be the first video I do of a case that has changed materially. So it's not actually the same case anymore. It's actually, in my opinion, a lot better than it used to be. First of all, or second of all, thanks to the sponsors. Markets, stocks having a tough day, commodities, silver's doing well, copper's doing well, crypto not having a good day. So the case is Barsele, or the new case is actually a merged entity, so it's the new Barsele. It's Barsele 2.0 because Barsele recently merged with Goline. I own shares of both companies because they were both in the Goline belt of northern Sweden, which is to the west of the Boliden belt, where Boliden got its start and still has several mines producing, and they also have at least one of their smelters to the east near the coast. So I wrote this article back in October, I mean not too long ago, October of 2023. I outlined my case why I thought that this was, in my opinion, a pretty obvious value play. And of course, I mean that's what we're after in a bear market. I mean, when you can buy dollars for pennies, or what the saying is, it can't get much better than that. I mean, the big money is really made in bear markets. The worse the bear market, the more money you're probably gonna end up making if you're a net buyer. Very few can obviously do that, as we're seeing right now, because the volumes are still pretty pitiful, despite gold going up to 2,200, silver starting to rock and roll. Anyway, this company, Barsele, when it was hot and the junior sector was pretty good. I mean, this is the start of 2016 here. It's like that's around the time the last bear market bottomed, and then it got hot. And this story was one of the hotter stories back then. I think it reached a market cap of $174 million. 174. Based on this land package here and their interest in the Barsele Deposit, which is the largest undeveloped deposit in Sweden. So now Barsele version 2.0, after having merged Goline and Barsele, it's very different, I would say, because all of a sudden, I mean, that's why I made a case for both Goline and Barsele, and the reason why I bought them, because if I had an ownership in both of them, I basically had an interest in the lion's share of the Goline belt, plus the, let's say, central jewel, which would be the Barsele Deposit, which is again the largest undeveloped gold project in the entire basically in Sweden. I think it's the second largest in terms of resource in Scandinavia after Icari, or the Rupert's Icari deposit. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that is actually the case. It's at least the largest one in Sweden. And what was I gonna say? So yeah, I mean, in my opinion, this is what I was after. I mean, I hoped that someday they would merge these entities, and you would have the largest undeveloped gold deposit in Sweden, together with a pretty immense land package that stretches, I mean, is on strike to both ends. I mean, from a satellite deposit perspective, you obviously want, if you have a hub and spoke model, you want the hub to be in the middle. I mean, it just goes without saying. Not that I think it would be a big difference if, you know, this deposit actually was up here and you found something down here, whatever. Because actually there's a small mine, a gold mine, that's actually set to become a producing mine. I think it's located around here, and they will be shipping high-grade ore to Dragon Mining's Svartliden plant here. So there is a small plant in there, and here you have the Skellefteå VMS belt and a bunch of historic mines, as well as currently producing mine. You have Boliden's Kankberg mine, Boliden's Renström mine, Boliden's Kristineberg mine, and somewhere around here I think they have their smelter. Here Mandalay has their Björkdal mine, and this is a very, in my opinion, fascinating mine. Because I mean, from a global global perspective of underground mines, well, it's actually an open pit and underground mine, but it's like their underground grades are like 1 to 2 grams per ton, and that's been producing for a long time. Where else can you produce at those grades? Not many places in the world. If I had to guess, I would say northern Sweden, given that it has all the infrastructure. I mean, there's a railway, a highway, and power lines going through the Barsele project, and you have hydropower up here. So from a infrastructure perspective, this is extremely good, because it's not densely populated either. So it has all the infrastructure, but not the population problem, let's say. So I think it's I think if you would ever, from a, let's say, cash flow perspective or whatever, northern Sweden is probably where you have the best shot at actually making money in any type of deposit, really, at a given grade. I don't think the Björkdal mine, it probably wouldn't work in many places. Barsele has higher grade than the Björkdal mine and is a lot larger. So if they can make money at Björkdal, do you think Barsele could be economic at significantly higher grade? Yeah, I think so. So let's look at the new presentation here, Barsele Minerals. Here you get the share structure. The funny thing is that, let's see here, Barsele today is a 24 million market cap. That's what Barsele, and this is Barsele version 2.0. That's the same market cap that Barsele alone had when I wrote the article. So Barsele without 85 extra kilometers of strike and the Solvik project, and there's a project in Finland as well, with a resource that used to belong to Agnico Eagle, and Agnico Eagle is the majority owner of the Barsele project. Agnico owns 55 and is the operator. Barsele owns 45% and is the minority owner. And that's one reason why this story has been, a snooze fest, and why this is, in my opinion, a total sleeper. I mean, in the sense, or especially highlighted, in my opinion, that after these companies merged with obvious synergies, it's actually cheaper. The combined entity, even after adding 300,000-400,000 ounces of gold in Finland, and that's a district scale project, bolting on all this strike to the Barsele deposit, and now they basically, they're the only real player in the entire Goline belt. The market cap recently was even lower than before they added that. That doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form. The gold price is up, the project has not gotten any worse, etc., etc. That's why the beauty of bear markets. Typically the main opportunities arise when there's either good news that doesn't get revalued, or the stock doesn't get revalued on the back of good news, or the case is intact, the same, and price declines. That's the low-hanging fruit. That is like the pounds time for value investors. Those are the most obvious, let's say, births of opportunity. Either lack of volatility when there should be volatility, or volatility when there shouldn't be. Intact story, lower price, cheaper company, better risk reward, or higher value, same or even declining share price, higher price to value gap, a better story. So again, it's located in northern Sweden. This is the VMS belt, and this basically founded Boliden, or this is the I was gonna say bread and butter of Boliden. They have a bunch of mines here that's been operating for quite some time, and here you have the gold line. So they cross, and here's the Barsele project. So Barsele, the main Barsele ground here, and these up here might as well have VMS potential. They've already hit VMS potential. High grade VMS here, Agnico has hit. That's the Norra deposit. It's not a big one, but there are some meaty intercepts there, and I think there's a lot more prospectivity. So, okay, I mean, I'm not gonna go through every slide. They also have, this is the Riesberget target. Here's the Norra deposit. Here is the main Barsele zone, and here you can see why this story got a lot more sleepier. 2017, around this time, most amount of drill meters. It ramped up 2016, 2017, then it kind of dropped off, and since then, Agnico has basically been drilling, to keep up their, let's say, maintenance costs, to keep the claims in good standing. This is an absolute snooze pill for investors. And Barsele, they were not the operator, so they can't control that. That's like, this is Agnico Eagle losing focus. I mean, for a point in time here, and I highlighted that in the article, it's like it seemed that Agnico Eagle was switching its entire focus to Canada. So this basically got orphaned. Nothing happened. It's not like the drill results got bad or anything. I mean, I think it was in 2021 they hit I think the highest grades ever, or along the lines of the highest grade ever, and they delineated a potential bonanza zone within this system here, and I think even that the orientation was a bit different, which kind of highlights the fact that okay, maybe there's even higher grade veins that's orientated differently, which will not be easy to hit if you drill the typical loads, if you use that direction, and maybe they go like that, so you would have to actually orientate your drilling to hit those, but they haven't followed up on that yet, and instead mostly kept testing for more VMS, because these are some world-class VMS mines here to the east. And they have that. So there's both orogenic gold potential, which is the main Barsele deposit, and there's also VMS potential. Just to the west of the Boliden or Skellefteå VMS belt, whereas like Boliden has a bunch of mines, all that. And you can see it's like how many mines there are here. The Goline belt is very underexplored, but Dragon Mining mined Svartliden until they ran out of ore. Then they try to get the Faboliden deposit up and running, 10 million tons at 3.1 grams per ton, and it seems they messed that up. They got a no from some authority, let's say, and as far as I understand, it's basically because I think they tried to, let's say, take a shortcut. They were set on running trucks through some small village here, and it would be, I don't know how many trucks would go through the village every day. And that, I think they got a no from some authority, because that plan wasn't, good. It was, basically, I think they saw it as a risk, having these big trucks, maybe a few times every hour or something, going through a small community. And that makes sense. And I don't think they thought they had the money or whatever to just basically do a side road, go around the small village. And they're even the locals, they try to, well, they basically want the mine to get a go ahead, so obviously they can get the jobs. And I think that speaks volumes too. I mean, the locals here seem to be very mining friendly, and that's again is shown by the mine by Botten Exploration that is around here, I think, and they will be trucking ore to the Dragon Mining Svartliden. So they got to go ahead to build a mine, and they got to go ahead, as far as I know, to truck ore and keep this plant going. So here you have a small plant, and that's what Dragon Mining has been mining, these relatively small deposits, and Boliden was going to be their next mine to put into production, which they again messed up. But you could probably make a lot of money on 10 million tons at 3.1 grams per ton in this part of Sweden. Also, one thing that is, here's the Botten Exploration, the Fabo share. Maybe actually, can we see that? No, it's not on that map. This is a high grade one, small mine set to go into production. So one other thing that, in my opinion, just kind of shows how ridiculously undervalued I think Barsele is, just based on this land package here and this resource, is the fact that in 2021 a Swedish Geological Survey designated the area hosting Central Avan ski Rosen zones, it's in the red here, as well as the Norra zone, which is up here, as national interest to Sweden. National interest to Sweden. That does not jive with the market cap it had when I did the article. It certainly doesn't jive with the current market cap, which is pretty much the same, even though the story got a lot better, because now all of a sudden you have margin of safety, probable growth within the deposit, and over 100 kilometers of strike along the deposit, plus the asset in Finland, plus Solvik, which that's very much a peripheral asset in my opinion. But it's absolutely crazy. It's like if this was in Canada, 10 juniors would be sharing this. And in Canada, most places are remote, except if you're in some parts of Ontario or Quebec or whatever. I mean, if you have Yukon and parts of BC, I mean, you might be tens of kilometers or at least tens of kilometers from a nearby road up in the mountains. This is not the case here at all. I think here you have the Barsele village. I think these are either power lines or rail lines or something. I think the highway goes down here. I think that shows up on, let's see, the bus to Tresk target maybe. Well, anyway, so is this cut off in any way, shape or form? Absolutely not. Here's the Bonanza zone, new target zones Avan. Here's where they hit 5 meters of 84 grams per ton uncapped, and this has not been followed up on. This is the Riesberg target, where they've already hit like 32 meters of 3 grams, 1 meter of 248 grams apparently, 3 meters at 2.75 grams. And this, even if underground, I think they can make good money in this part of Sweden. Yeah, here actually I think you have the highway and railway just going past, and here you can see the main Barsele deposit. It does not get better than this from an infrastructure perspective. It's one of the most extreme infrastructure plays, if you know what I mean. Plus you get the hydropower. That's why actually northern Sweden has some crypto miners up there, because the power is so cheap. And Facebook, I think, has a data center and all that. And obviously, as we know, mining costs is a big thing in mining. It goes without saying, but you want low cost, obviously, because in some places you can't make money on 6 grams per ton underground. In Sweden, in these places, like the Kankberg mine here, I think that's the one. I think they're down to around 1 kilometer in depth mining. The cut-off rate in the resource last I checked was 400 SEK. That's 40 USD cutoff. That's around today. That's around 0.6 grams per ton. Underground cutoff rate for Boliden's Kankberg mine. They're making money on the Kankberg mine, I can tell you that. And Sweden has, let's see if I find well, we can look at this, for example. This is the Itic Mine. I'm pretty sure that's also in northern Sweden, also a Boliden mine. These are the reserve grades. This is an open pit mine, largest open pit mine in Sweden. 0.15 grams per ton AU, 1.2 grams per ton silver, 0.22% Cu. If you notice a bunch of, there's a bunch of places in BC where you have like 0.4% copper equivalent, stuff like 0.5. That tends to be too low. They're making money on this stuff. And I think last time I checked the presentation very recently, the outlook for 2024 is just obscene. They're expecting to mine some 0.18% copper and 0.08 grams per ton gold from Itic. I'm not sure, if they're gonna make money on that or how much, but it's just absurd how cheap some of these projects in Sweden are to mine, which brings me to this slide done by EMX. Why should you invest in the Swedish mining sector? Some of these might be a bit out of date, obviously, because they were, developed, with cost inflation, all of that. Garpenberg has been in operation for quite some time, and I don't know where these costs were taken from when. Is this expansion cost or when they actually built it? I'm not 100% sure. Viscari is a copper mine in Sweden, or a copper deposit that Copperstone Resources is set to build. So you can build mines in Sweden. But the most interesting things, in my opinion, first of all, drilling costs are quite low in Sweden, but the operating costs, underground mining. Here's Garpenberg, USD per ton. Here's Björkdal, that's the Mandalay Resources mine. Here's Zinkgruvan, and that's Lundin Mining's mine. I think that's also down to like 1.2 kilometers depth or something. And here you have a few others. It's quite the difference. Quite the difference. That's why Björkdal can mine, let's say 2 grams per ton underground. Here's operating cost open pit. Here you have Itic. I think Kevitsa belongs to Boliden as well. Here's Itic. Here you have El Teniente, Grasberg, Bingham Canyon, Red Chris, Cobre Panama. It's like less than half the operating cost per ton than some of these other large open pit famous mines. That's because where it is in Sweden, and it's like we have, Sandvik, we have Atlas Copco, we have Equinor, what's it called? Epiroc. Those are all mining equipment manufacturers, big ones, world renowned, and they are from Sweden. Here's an article that I just Google translated. Defining Barsele becomes a new national interest 2021. Where is it? Does this share price look like an asset of national interest to Sweden in one of the best places to actually have a mine or a deposit? No. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's selling at... Yeah, when I did my piece, Barsele was trading at 18 cents, I think. Now with the added dilution of merging with Goline, it's down to 24 million, same market cap. I'm very biased here because I own a lot of shares, and Barsele still think is a sponsor. But this might be one of the cheapest gold plays I have ever seen. Actually, yeah. Because this is just absolutely absurd. This deposit, 45% of this deposit traded for 174 million back in 2017. Then because Agnico dropped its focus, the ounces didn't go anywhere, the potential didn't go anywhere, but basically Agnico Eagle has kept it on the back burner. And this is what happens with share prices of boring juniors in a bear market. You would think that the case is busted or something like that, but it really is not. It's wide open in a bunch of places just around the main zone. Riesberget is open, that's not in the resource. A lot of the drilling over the last few years is not in the resource. The Norra VMS zone is not in the resource. Here you can see some highlighted holes, obviously, but it's like 10 meters of 9 grams per ton AU, silver, copper, lead, zinc, 12 meters of 11 grams per ton. I mean, if you find more of that stuff, yeah, I mean, you get the point. I mean, this is beyond the ore grades in this part of Sweden. Here you have follow-up VMS targets. I think those are the presence of felsic volcanics. Well, there's a bunch of targets, and again, that's just within the central portion. Here you have some highlighted drill intercepts from the Barsele deposit itself, 4.5 meters, and these are true thicknesses, like 84 meters of 2 gram, 50 meters of almost 5, 7 meters of 7, 69 of 1.82, 33 of 4 grams, 29.7 over 3.1, 2.5 meters true width of 60 grams, 0.5 meters of 101, 5.8 of 12. I mean, these are really good numbers. Here's not available, core length 84, that's the new bonanza zone that hasn't been followed up. Then you have the Bastutresk target, which I guess is here, 0.7 meters of 32.2, 1.65 meters of 5.8. So there's smoke. There's smoke all over. There's VMS smoke. Here you have, this is Bastutresk. They actually hit some nickel, copper, and cobalt here. I don't know what that's about. And this would all be, easily within trucking distance. This is the exposed trench Agnico Eagle did. I think it was Agnico Eagle, or it might have been actually Northern Resources, a predecessor. Metallurgy looks good, really good. I mean, recovery succeed 92. 50 to 60% could be recovered through a gravity circuit, and that's the cheapest form of processing you can do, basically. So 50 to 60% of the gold from the cheapest way possible. Here's the resource, and management believes that this could be upped in terms of grade with more drilling. Let's actually look at, or I have a few here in the piece where it's like I made comparisons to, here's the here's the insider buying before the merger, and here you obviously have Taj Singh, dated so a week ago. He bought 100,000 shares. And the funny thing with like Taj Singh, I remember Discovery Silver, or Discovery Metals as they were known back then. Now it's Discovery Silver. I owned a company called Levon Resources, which had a huge, very low grade silver deposit in Mexico. At the time, I think I bought it for 15 to 20 million. I think it was around the 2015-16 bottom. I didn't own it for too long. I don't remember. I might actually have owned it going into Discovery Metals, then headed by Taj Singh, who acquired asset. Well, that asset, and I rewatched some presentations by Taj Singh like 4 years ago, where he said this is basically a forgotten asset. Well, it appears it sure was, because that same asset, after Taj Singh working his magic and showing that it's not necessarily just a huge, very low grade deposit. They had high grade hits. They started focus on that, if I'm not mistaken. And what's that, like 2 years later, Discovery Metals hit a market cap, I think it was around these times, I'm not 100% sure what share count was, around $750 million. So Taj Singh acquired a forgotten asset for Discovery Metals, reworked it, actually, became serious from because he's a mining engineer, became serious from a, mine perspective, to show that, hey, this is not just a huge optionality play. This project actually has a shot of becoming a mine. Ran up to 750 million market cap. And now, even after the, big bear market, it's still at 300 million. And it looks like it's actually breaking out. So what the actual value of this deposit is, I don't know. It's probably not 300 million, but more than that. I mean, at face value right now, at these silver prices, it's probably worth, I don't know, 3 times this, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. But so I got really curious when Taj Singh hopped on as CEO of Goline when it was trading at a 5 million market cap. Because in my mind, I mean, he was also a founding director of GT Gold, which became a success and sold to Newmont. He was obviously also with Discovery Metals. He resigned around this time, I think, and went into Noah Lithium, if I'm not mistaken. But one could say that he has a very good track record of value creation. Or, basically, and having a nose for what actually is a valuable project. Or what could be a valuable project, let's say opportunity. So when he got into Goline, I'm thinking that, okay, given his past successes, like, what would he need to see? And that's just at Goline for him to be interested in hopping on. I mean, there's no way that if Goline's market cap was fair value, 5 million, I don't think there's a shot that he gets interested. But after talking to Taj, I mean, he got on board of Goline for the pullback. Well, I was gonna say Discovery, but it's like kind of Discovery. Unfortunately, I don't think I have it, because this is mostly a focus on the Barsele. But here's pullback and project. You can go and check the Goline website, that's still up, where they go through the some of the targets here. They had hit like, what was it, like 23 meters or 2 grams per ton or something down here in the pullback and project. They have a bunch of gold anomalies and all that. Very underexplored belt. Again, it's like over 110 or 100 kilometers of strike. And it didn't take too long before Goline and Barsele announced that they would merge, and Taj would be the CEO of the merged entity, which is now Barsele 2.0. So I mean, in my mind, it's like, okay, everything that I hoped was gonna happen happened a lot faster than I thought. I very much like the idea of being able to buy the, let's say, king of gold juniors in Sweden. Largest undeveloped deposit, exploration potential that could last decades. Because let's face it, but it's like, if I had to guess, I think, well, I'm actually going to go back and see, look at this one here. Where was this? I went through. It's like I made some comparisons to Icari, for example, and it's like what their costs are expected to be. And this is the dollar value at $800 per $1,800 per gold. This is Rupert's underground mining cost estimates. Icari underground $40. I mean, that's the around the same cutoff grade as Kankberg mine, for example, Patavari underground, and the underground grade for the Barsele resource is $150, well above what Icari believes they can mine underground. Blue sky potential. This is the Kittilä mine in Finland, which belongs to Agnico Eagle. They are down to, I don't know, probably like, what is this, like 1 kilometer depth or something, because this has, a bunch of stuff has been mined here. This is the Barsele deposit. I think this is 1 kilometer. And this is 1 kilometer. And this is, again, this is untouched yet. Okay, this is not apparently correctly scaled. I wasn't able to do that. But I'm pretty sure that this, again, is 1 kilometer, so that would be somewhere along here. The main takeaway is that they've done geophysics and all of that. Oh, here you actually have here you can see the gold line belt light up. I actually included a slide for that. Just gonna try to find it. Again, this is open to this direction as well, and they hit visible gold here. I'm not sure. I don't think they have been released. I don't know what they're gonna show, but the news release, if you go back and look, the last Barsele news release in terms of drilling is that they had hit VG, instances of VG extending this zone. So we have no idea how far this goes. So it's wide open along strike. This Avon zone is wide open along strike. Here is where you go into, I think that's where the lake comes in here. And Agnico had a buffer of like 150 meters, I think, for their resource. So I know some people see this lake and it's like, well, that's a problem. Well, there's not going to be an open pit really close to that, because they're not thinking of doing a super pit. They're thinking of doing a few smaller pits, and most of it being underground, which would make it obviously easier to mine, or to permit, I was gonna say. And yeah, we have no idea how. I'm trying to find the best slides. Sorry. So this is where they keep hitting. We don't know how far this is gonna go. It's wide open at depth. The deposit has an average depth, I think, the resource of 450 meters or something. And as Gary Cope has pointed out, these resources are not typical junior resources. These are Agnico resources, like mineable resources. It's closer to reserves, if anything. So it's actually, it's actually better than it looks. If you compare, the same amount of ounces to another junior's resource, these would be much higher quality resources. So all of what is reflected in the market cap at 24 million CAD? Oh, and of course I haven't even, let's actually go and look. 1 second. Let's see here. Corporate presentation. is from December 2023. So this is basically what Barsele bolted on. Well, they actually have, okay, they have this slide. Here you can see the pro forma. I was in the placement. So they should have around 2.4 million in cash. Well, let's say 2 million. So the enterprise value is actually 22 million. Here you have, the Barsele deposits outlined and the Norra deposit, Riisberg target. And here you can see it's like the outline. There's like 7 kilometers of granite diorite, which is the host rock. So this is the deposit, which I think could be, and according to if you listen to Gary Cope's videos, he thinks there's, readily potential for 45 million ounces here. And that's not talking blue sky at depth. I don't think that's talking, blue sky extensions. That's not including Riisberget. That's not including VMS. That's not including any of the targets that Goline have on their property. Just within this area, they think that they could get at least to 4 to 5 million ounces. Located at the best, possibly one of the best places you could have a mine like this, which is northern Sweden, close to all the infrastructure you need, west of Boliden smelters and mines, and I would think some human capital, and the locals actually tend to like mines. They protested that some authority said no to the Boliden mine. And there's a mine starting which is around somewhere to the east, and they are supposed to truck it to that Svartliden plant. So here's like current resource area covers over 3 kilometers of strike towards the northwestern extension of the shear zone and potentially exceed 8 kilometers. And this is where they hit visible gold stepping out to the northwest. And I don't know the results. Apparently visible gold is quite common here, and I guess that's why you can recover 50 to 60% via gravity, which is great. New targets identified and not included in the current resource: Riisberget, Norra, Södra Sundträsket, and the newly identified Bastuträsk. Probably a few or several 100,000 ounces there, let's say a satellite deposit kind of thing. So there's like, this is way underappreciated. This is an outdated snapshot of this area, because they've drilled more. They have not hit the limits of this system, either to depth or even within, I would guess, or to the west. Then you have the Riisberget, then you have the VMS mineralization. Then you have the district scale exploration potential. It's like Påbacken, and this is what got Taj interested in the first place. 23 meters of 2.45 grams per ton, 14.6 meters of 2.44 grams per ton, 4.7 meters of 2.12 grams per ton. Which sounds kind of in line what Dragon Mining was mining. So imagine you find 500 to a million ounces here over at Påbacken. Then you have Klippen, which has a 5 kilometer long soil anomaly, coincident with major structure corridor and pathfinder elements. Some historic drilling, as you can see here. I was like, did they drill what explained this? We know, the Ice Age and Till and all of that. We've had the Ice Age in Sweden. But it seems to line up with the structures. Here you have Storjuktan, I think that's to the north of Barsele. Goline target, okay, there's a bunch of targets up there. Plus, we have the Oijärvi standalone belt scale opportunity in Finland. This Goline acquired Oijärvi from Agnico Eagle 2021. So that kind of rhymes with, let's just say, Agnico focusing on Canada. Now, they are, I think, an investor in Rupert. I don't remember when they became an investor. And there's some shenanigans happening in Finland if you've been watching Rupert. They're trying to buy out Orion's interest in... No, I think they're trying to buy out B2's interest in Orion. which will make it obviously even more of a takeover candidate. And I know there were some rumors floating around that Agnico would actually buy Rupert. So maybe that has shifted. This isn't in that exact area though, but this is still almost 52,000 meters of sunk costs. I mean, pretty impressive hits. It's wide open in every direction as far as I understand. Around 300,000 ounces. AU equivalent ounces 311. AU equivalent grade 3.6. Which is, along the lines of Ikkari. But obviously this more like lode type stuff. This is worth something at least. I don't think Agnico would have bothered drilling 52,000 meters. And again, it's like, who knows how actually big this actually is. I think known mineralization occurs over a 1.5 kilometer strike. Drilled to an average depth of only 215 vertical meters. Significant opportunity exists for resource expansion in multiple directions. Current resource based on 67 drill holes totaling, that's not a lot. 67 holes made a 300,000 ounce resource. And I think this is still up in the air, I think. Near-term exploration plans update MRE, fast-track PA study, further drill testing at the Avon and Buster Trek zone, and VMS targets focused drilling along the 3.6 kilometer gold trend in Finland, 20,000 meters of infill definition drilling, Påbacken target, Storjuktan target, Klippen target. I mean, already if I had to guess, and that's also listening from, or I should say this resource, for example, I think this resource was done at $1,300 gold. And I think I remember talking to Cope. It's like, basically, this resource was done. It's like, this should work at $1,300 gold. I think that was, obviously Agnico's idea. That's why they did it at, $1,250 or $1,300 gold. I think $1,300 gold. Well, gold is at 2,150, something like that now, obviously. So I don't know what this project is worth. Just this resource, I would bet, if I had to guess, at least 500 million. Like, legitimately, a legit mine. It's like, this mine works. I'm pretty sure. Should work very well at these prices. Imagine if it's like this picture here. It turns out to be actually closer to 45 million ounces. And then you will add all the other targets. You get 300,000 ounces and a greenstone belt in Finland as an added kicker, which used to belong to Agnico Eagle. All these targets, and those are without just the immediate targets around the Barsele deposit, which again includes the Riesberget target where they've already hit mineralization. So like, if we're talking blue sky within this land package, I think this here could probably, I think blue sky here is, 5 million ounces is not blue sky, I would say. Let's say 5 to 10 million ounces. Let's say they find even 500,000 at Påbacken. Then you have a big mine. It's like, I think there's going to be more gold along, more deposits. So who knows? That's what attracts me. It's in Sweden. It's a tier 1 jurisdiction. It's maybe the best mining area you could actually want from a cost perspective, because all the infrastructure is there and you get the hydropower, all of that. So it's like, I don't know, this could probably be a hub and spoke gold mining district for many decades to come. And you can buy all of that plus the Finnish asset for 24 million Canadian. which is basically what a junior with a soil sample used to fetch in price in 2016, even if it was almost in the middle of nowhere. This is, in my opinion, absolutely absurd. That is why I bought a lot of more shares over the last few weeks, along with Taj has picked up shares as well. I mean, that's basically it. I think this is absolutely remarkable. It's like, again, I am very biased. I am aware that right now it's a low liquidity stock, relatively speaking. So I'm kind of, like with some other stories, I'm tying myself to the mast. But I believe that over the long term, I think I'm gonna be quite happy even if I couldn't sell, my position. Because I for the life of me, I don't see how this is not one of the cheapest gold plays out there. You get the jurisdiction covered, tier 1 jurisdiction, best place, basically extremely good infrastructure, margin of safety. It's like this is a very conservative resource that should work very well in Sweden at those grades, and you have massive exploration potential. So you have the margin of safety in the deposit, you have the probable growth in the deposit, within the deposit, around the deposit, you have a huge blue sky around the deposit. So, okay, what I see is like risks. I don't see much. I don't see any like valuation risk. I mean, I would say it's impossible that this is not undervalued, extremely undervalued. What I do want to see is Barsele being able to do a deal with Agnico, like the Barsele version 1 tried to do with Agnico back in, what was that, 2021? Let's see. So this was the deal back then. I think actually the valuation in that deal, and at the time I think Barsele was trading at, what was it? Trying to find 112 million when they tried to do the deal. I think the deal, the 55% of Agnico's stake, and that's of course excluding all of this, just 55% of this, I think, had an attributed value of around, what was it? Over 60 million Canadian. Over 60 million. So in that case, only back then, I mean, one could say it's like, okay, Barsele's share was actually by Mr. Market deemed to be worth 112 million or something like that. And the funny thing is that apparently Agnico demanded to have get paid in equity, which obviously means that they thought this is still cheap and want to have upside exposure to this story. Even though they might not be the ones working it, they think this is cheap and it's going to go higher. Otherwise, they would obviously demand everything in cash. So, I mean, every single tidbit of information I found obviously leads me to believe that this is Barsele probably has never been cheaper. It's like Barsele added a project in Finland, 85 kilometers of strike along the flagship asset, and the combined value of that is still the same as it was before, and that's after going, that's after falling all the way from $1.62 per share. This is absolutely crazy in my opinion. If this was 100% owned and this market woke up to this story, I would not be surprised. I think this easily, on a 100% ownership basis, I think this easily has $1 billion potential. I really do. Because I think there's at least 5 million ounces here in the best possible place to basically have a mine in the world. And 5 million, let's say 5 million economic ounces in a tier 1 jurisdiction, that's not even, that's not a $1 billion target, especially at these gold prices. So yeah, I mean, I find hard to put into words how cheap I think this is. And that's why I've been buying shares. And obviously I'm biased and all that. It's like I can't guarantee anything. This has become one of my biggest exposures, and I'm biased. I mean, on a personal sense, because it is in Sweden, which I find to be very cool, and I think Sweden is a total sleeper. I think the uranium moratorium will likely be lifted this year. I think that's going to bring back more focus to Sweden. I mean, it's like Mawson Gold. When they had a early stage uranium asset in Sweden, they had a market cap up to 150 million. And this is much more advanced than that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say actually more. It's like, where do you find it? Where do you find something like this trading for 24 million? There are some cheap gold projects in Canada, which I think are good, and are around this kind of price point, if you know what I mean. But from a mining perspective, I don't think it can get better than northern Sweden here. And most of them don't have 100 kilometers of strike that could all feed into this. I mean, Goline basically controls the Goline belt with VMS potentially. If they find one of these VMS deposits on this ground here, I mean, that's, who knows what that could be worth. I mean, if we assume that Norra Metals or the Norra target, it's just a sliver. I mean, they hit a fingernail of something. It's like if they find other pieces, the more meaty pieces, etc. So yeah, again, I can't stress enough, I am biased. And it's easy to get paranoid when stuff is cheap. But it's like Headwater, for example, just I think a good example. So Headwater, for some friggin' reason, sold down all the way to 13 cents. No change in the case. That was an enterprise value of $6.5 million. They have a partnership. They still have a deal going with Newmont. And as far as I know, nothing has happened with that. And they have a discovery already. Just that one asset. They have like 12 projects or 11. It's absolutely crazy. And I was buying shares because it was so. It's like, it's easy to get paranoid as always. You see the price go down and you're starting to think, well, maybe this won't work. Maybe this or that. But it's like, hey, I mean, Spring Peak alone is a district scale target, and they've already hit, really good results. And even if they have several 100,000 ounces there, given that Hekla's Aurora mine is right next door, do they need to find like 1.5 million ounces, which was the threshold for the Newcrest deal to begin with, for them to do a PFS and all that? No, I mean, Hekla would probably want that if it was like 300,000 ounces. That could be worth a lot to them. But Mr. Market does these kind of things. It's like, I have no idea who's actually been selling shares to me in Barsele recently. But I don't care. I don't think they're doing it. Let's say I don't think they're smart doing it. But going back to okay, so what's the quote risk here? Valuation wise, I don't think there's any risk. There's no way that this is not extremely undervalued. The risk, as I see it, is if they're not able to do some kind of deal with Agnico that makes Barsele operators. Because in that case, this story might be boring, keep being boring. And that's like, investors don't typically care about undervaluation and all that. They want stuff that's exciting and going up. So that is the main risk, that it's like, it stays boring for some time. Because, I mean, they have enough I mean, they could be working the Finnish asset, they could be working, the pullback and the ground around the Barsele deposit and all of that. So, I mean, they could still... It's still a story that can, get worked. And they keep the 45% carried interest in the largest undeveloped gold asset in Sweden. Still, it's like, when this gets really excited is if they get Agnico out. Yes, that's going to create dilution and all that, but if that happens, this would be, I think, one of the most exciting gold juniors in the entire space. Because I think they can quickly show that this is probably more like a 45 million ounce system, just in this portion here. And then they will, let's say they do an updated MRE and they start to include Riesberger, which is still wide open, and Bastuträsk, where they hit stuff, and pullback and all of that. Then we're talking something that's like not unique, but it's like, yeah, I mean, how many juniors do you know that have, in that case would control a multi-million ounce deposit in a tier 1 jurisdiction with this kind of exploration potential in this part of Sweden where you have some of the lowest mining costs in the world? Yeah, it's like, I don't know what to say. It's like, I remember District Metals when it was trading at 5 cents. I thought about it, it's like, okay, this is so ridiculously cheap. And then they didn't have any uranium assets. It's like, okay, it's underappreciated probably because it's in Sweden. Because that's a sleeper. I mean, how many juniors do you know in Sweden? I wouldn't say you know many juniors in Sweden. So it's kind of, I mean, there are some exotic jurisdictions that are, underappreciated because they are, quote, exotic jurisdictions. Like, parts of Latin America, Africa, whatever. This is like legit tier 1 jurisdiction. From a mining perspective, absolutely tier 1. But nobody in the Canadian or the North American markets, I mean, when were they last invested in a Swedish junior? Finland is heating up, but that's still relatively new. Sweden, I think, is even more of a sleeper. And if I had to choose, I'd rather have a mine in Sweden than in Finland, personally. And so I think that's just, yeah, it's basically a perfect storm. You have a poor performing share price, a sleepy story in Sweden, in the worst bear market since the 2000s, which allows all of this, plus Finland, plus Solvik, to be picked up at 24 million Canadian. I mean, that's lower than the sunk costs to drill it. Obviously, I mean, it's a multi-million ounce resource already. And that's a conservative resource done at $1,300 gold. I mean, I kind of kicked myself for not plowing in even heavier into District when it was around 5, 6, 7 cents. Because it was almost given away, and District didn't have a resource. Well, I mean, there's historic resources. They had a lot of potential in the they have a lot of projects, 3 base metal projects, legit base metal projects in the Bergslagen district. Super underappreciated because it's in Sweden, and because it's, zinc, kind of zinc focus, but silver base metal focus. So it's like the most boring of the boring, which created the biggest sleeper. Well, now they have the uranium assets as well, and Garrett is a rock star in my book. But now DMX is what, 42 million, 33 cents, recently up to 38 cents. Do you think I wished I would have just plowed in even heavier around these lows? Yeah, you bet your ass I do. And this is another nice slide here. World leading productivity in open pit underground mines. I mean, this is a Boliden slide, but here you have Itic, the open pit mines. That super low grade one still works. Here you have Garpenberg. I mean, they're like, yeah. I mean, I assumed it's because of Boliden's know-how, but it's like I think it also ties in the fact that it's like it's Sweden. We have some of the best mines in the world here, and I think that's not only because Boliden simply are the best miners in the world. I think it's the infrastructure, the some of the power costs, especially in northern Sweden. It's the fact that we have some of the best mining suppliers in the world, well, equipment manufacturers, all of that. So yeah, so it's like I've been buying still in the last few days. I have bids in today. So it's like I don't really want to see Barsele go up much higher yet. It's like if I had even more money, I would be buying even more. But I just have to say, it's like in my book, it's like, look here, it's like it's only me online. 53,000 shares. I think most of that is me. I think most of this volume is me. And maybe if Tashing has kept on buying, maybe that as well. No, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But there's still no guarantees. Agnico might sit on the project. We don't know how a deal would look. And the funny thing is, like, if you listen to Gary Cope's interview at Deutsche Goldmesse from a couple of years back, when they announced that they were trying to do a deal. He said that Newmont was on standby. Newmont was aware of the project, and as far as I understand, which makes sense, that they wouldn't be interested in the project if Agnico was still in it. If Agnico owned 55%, what's Newmont gonna do? They probably want the whole thing, if you know what I mean. So assuming they get 100% ownership, and that's probably gonna entail Agnico getting a fairly big share position still, then I think some of the other large companies might be interested. So that's what I'm looking forward to. So I think, as always, asymmetrical. There's no way I'm overpaying, even though there is no deal to be made. But if there's a deal made, I think it could get really exciting, really quickly. I think this could be one of the most interesting gold junior plays in the space. Again, highly biased. Just so you know, think for yourself. Those are my 2 cents. And I thought, again, it's like, I'm not saying you have to buy this. It's like I bought shares. I bought a lot of shares. It's one of my largest holdings right now. And I can't really get out of it anyway, but it's like, unlike Condor, this is not an assay risk type story. This is a value play with probable growth and, in my opinion, very high blue sky potential. And I'm just hoping they do get a deal going, because then this would all be 100% owned. And yeah, it's like you would be the king of gold in Sweden, basically. And I own a pretty decent stake of it, which is very cool in my opinion. Thanks for listening. Bye.